Hello and welcome along to the first episode of the Jumps edition of the Formbook, looking ahead to a blockbuster weekend of racing. We've already covered the Breeders Cup on our Formbook special. Now it's time for a look at Wetherby and Down Royal. Yes, welcome along. And for once, I'm not on my own. I've been joined by Dan Overall, who's been a regular on the Formbook over the years, and Jake Price, who's on debut. Dan, firstly, come to you. You've come out of hibernation. You must be pumped for the jump season in the next 6 months.
Yeah, the last few weeks I've finally showed my head to the world again. It's been great. Last week at Cheltenham was fantastic. Really good field sizes there. The rain is somewhat consenting to come, so we're getting some decent field sizes. Not in every race, as we'll find out as we go through the races this weekend. But in general, the jump season is well and truly up and running.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And Jake, your first time on the show, so just give us a little bit of your background and how you sort of got into racing.
Yeah, really happy to be here. Got into racing, well, it feels like forever ago now, but I've always been a jumps fan. Jumps racing was what got me hooked onto racing. So like Dan, I only show my face for 6 months of the year. Thank God for everyone else. But yeah, no, just absolutely love jumps racing and can't wait to get cracking on with these next 6 weeks or so up to Christmas. Are just absolutely magic, aren't they? Great racing every single weekend. So can't wait.
So as you can see, the guys' handles as well at Over and Clear for Dan and at Jake Price Racing for Jake on X. So make sure that you are following them. So before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have watched already, we had our Breeders Cup preview earlier on this week. Gave selections across all the turf races at this week's Breeders Cup, which is live on Racing TV across Friday and Saturday. A couple of 20 and 25 to 1 shots in there. Champions Full Gallop is well underway on ITV, and you can watch the whole series now on ITVX. Racing like you've never seen it before. Season 2 of Champions Full Gallop. Make sure you check it out. Race IQ data is going to be important for many jump fans in terms of lengths gain jumping or jump efficiency index. And you can check all of that out on the Race IQ website. Metrics are available minutes after every British and Irish race. It's also free trial time here at Racing TV. You can enjoy your 3 1-month trial now, and you've got loads to enjoy. You've got Wetherby, Down Royal this weekend, of course, Breeders' Cup, November meeting on the horizon, the Horden Gold Cup, the Badger Beers, the John Durkan Memorial, and plenty more besides that. So if you want to get involved in that, you can click this QR code in the top right hand of the corner. Enjoy all the action on Racing TV. So anyway, back to the action, and let's kick off then with the 150, which is a small but select field for this contest. 2 to 5 favourites, Golden Ace, the champion hurdle heroine is back. 7 to 2 for Katira, and Dysart Enos at 13 to 2. Dan, come to you first. I mean, it's not really a betting race, is it? But it's good to see Golden Ace out. I think Connections were umming and ahhing whether to run earlier this week, but looks like the ground's in her favour enough. And should it be a penalty kick for her on her comeback?
Yeah, it should be. On the ground, obviously, we're expecting it's probably on the slow side of good. They've done a lot of watering. There's some rain to come over the next 48 hours or so as well. So it should be fine, you'd hope, especially for the makeup of this race. Obviously, this was a very dramatic running of the champion hurdle. Still, I've never heard a crowd go so silent in all my days at a racetrack as to when Stateman fell at the last there in a race full of drama. But credit to Connections for taking their chance. They got their due rewards this day. If there is an angle to get a beat, I think you're probably looking at Jeremy Scott's generally needing a couple of runs to really get going, and also his general way of bringing horses along for a season. So I looked at the last 5 season stats by the months. So in October and November, he'd operate at a 7% strike rate, well below expected, and you'd lost 38% of your stake back into SP. Then you look at the remaining months of the season, December to April, 15% strike rate, and you had made a 5% profit. So that would be the angle. And also you look at her race last year when she made a reappearance, she did look to blow up slightly, but that was over 2.5 miles. On all known form, she should win this. I think if there is that angle to get a beat, it is that fitness side. But I think back over 2 miles, she should have too much class for these.
Okay, too much class. Jake, are you in agreement? I mean, out of the other two, is Katira probably the one who can serve it up to her most?
Yeah, she seems to always turn up in this race, doesn't she? She's an admirable type. She always ends up winning a race at some point in the season. You could definitely see her going well here. But, I mean, if Golden Ace is probably 85% fit, I think she goes and gets the job done here over 2 miles, which would, to me, be her ideal trip. Yeah, as you've mentioned at the top, it's definitely not a betting race, but it'd be very interesting to see what turns up. What happens.
And just a brief word, Jake, has on the other horse, which is Dysart Enos. It's not really worked out, has it? For one time, the apple, of course, of Fergal O'Brien's eye, but I mean, she's sort of flattering to deceive slightly, looking at a run back here in the Scottish Champion Hurdle at the back end of last year.
She is, yeah. She's forever the horse that is well handicapped, according to many, but it's just never really gone through and managed to capitalize on that mark, has she? So, yeah, you could see her going well here. I'm sure this will be a bit of a prep for some sort of handicap again down the line. But yeah, as you said, definitely flattering to deceive at this point.
Given how hyped up she was last season, you just know she's going to pop up in a random handicap at some stage this season when everyone has lost the faith with her. I mean, clearly that she hasn't been all that right even on the flat. She was really disappointing the other day, tongue tie on now, so has plenty to prove. But again, it really wouldn't surprise me if she popped up at 16-1 in some random handicap during the winter.
That's a look at the 157, the 150 even. The Bet365 hurdles next up, the West Yorkshire hurdle. So you're betting for that. Your 6-4 Fab is strong leader. 2-1 for Potter's Charm, who makes that an interesting contest. Take No Chances at 5-1. Winter Fog at 7s and Dolly the Great at 12. So came to Dan first last time. Let's talk about strong leader then, Jake. What do you make of his chances here?
Yeah, I think he's got everything in his favour, really. The type of conditions that Ollie Murphy talks about him needing is a flat left-handed track. Well, he gets that here with Wetherby. He says he prefers better ground. He gets that as well. So I think there's a lot in his favour. Obviously, last season he started out at Newbury when he won the long distance. I think a lot of people last season thought, why didn't he start here and then go to the long distance and get two ideal races in it with his conditions? Well, it seems like they're going to be doing that this year. So yeah, I think they're campaigning him a little bit differently as to what they've usually done. Ollie Murphy's never hid from the fact that he thinks he has to go left-handed. And they've actually decided that over Christmas they might go to Leopardstown instead of running in the long walk at Ascot, which would be very interesting as well. But yeah, obviously he carries the penalty here against his rivals, which will not make it a penalty kick. But I still think he's got a lot in his favour, and he is the one to be beating. That's for sure.
Okay, so the one to beat for Jake. What about yourself, Dan? Before we come to your selection, a word on Potter's Charm. Now, it looks like they're going to go down the stairs hurdle route, and clearly this is a good opportunity to test his credentials early in the season. What do you think of his chances here?
Yeah, not the typical sort of Nigel Twiston-Davies route, I guess, staying over hurdles for next season, probably more than most expected. Obviously, this is an unknown, the trip, but his dam was assisted to a 3-mile winner, and he's by Valoran, who does tend to produce stayers. He looks like a Lecky Watson, Panda Boy, Val Dancer. Obviously had a very productive this side of Christmas last year, 4 from 4, then started to sort of go downhill slightly. He was second to 6 Mile Bridge here when looking a bit laboured at 8 to 15, but probably just had one race too many. Tongue tie went on in the turners and wasn't disgraced by any stretch of the imagination that day, and wasn't actually all that far away when turning home, just looked to tire. Like, this is going to be a question. The trip is definitely going to pose something of an unknown for him. I guess tactically this race as well is fascinating because there is basically no pace whatsoever in this. Like, you've got a couple who will race handily in most of their races, but Winter Fog, proper hold-up horse, strong leader, doesn't tend to get involved because he can be a bit awkward out in front. Potter's Charm, generally mid-division to prominent, and Doddy the Great likewise. So this could become a relative test of speed at the trip. And to be fair, that would definitely suit a horse like Potter's Charm, who we know is effective over 2.5.
And who do you like here, Dan?
I would give Take No Chances the shout here. She's been a really admirable, consistent mare. She won the mare's race on this card last season and did so quite impressively. And she's had a very similar preparation this time around in that she ran an admirable race in the Silver Trophy. This time she was actually £10 higher than last year and ran perfectly fine. And last year, you look at her form, just continued to improve, beating Car Geese at Ascot over a trip probably shorter than ideal. Then went on to be third in the mare's hurdle and then third again at Aintree. All really impressive form. So while you may look at it, that all her form's over shorter, when she went for her initial spurt of improvement, it was in 3-mile handicap hurdles towards the spring of a couple of years ago. So the trip for her actually isn't much of an issue. And also the fact she has that proven aptitude for shorter in a race that could be quite tactical, I think, is a massive benefit. And in a way, she has quite a similar profile to Prashima, who had a prep run in the Silver Trophy before winning this a few years ago in a race that became a relative test of speed at the trip. I still am not 100% sure on how they were going to campaign her moving forward. I thought she might be a bit of a spring handicap plot after a run in the Silver Trophy, but if she is geared up for this properly, I think she has a much better chance of the current odds of 5-1 suggest.
Okay, so it's going to be Take No Chances then for Dan, and we already heard from Jake that he would be in the strong leader camp. Just a brief word, chaps, on the other two. I think Jake just on Winter Fog and Donny the Great. Both of them are obviously handicapped to the hilt, so getting a nice bit of prize money here in a grade 2, but they're going to be pretty hard to place this year, both of them, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. They're the type of horses going to have to run in these grade 2s all season, really, aren't they? And try and potentially go for a festival handicap or a spring handicap at the end of the year, potentially. But yeah, I thought that the Winter Fog would probably be able to run into a placer. Obviously, we don't get 3 places with the field that's currently been declared. So that is a bit of an annoyance. But it's interesting, obviously, that Willie sends him over. And then Doddy the Great, obviously the Potemps winner, will be, very hard to place, as you say, off of his current mark. But potentially a way back to that race would be the play.
So that's a look at that race 222. What about the Charlie Hall then? That's the feature race at Wetherby on Saturday. 9-4 Fab is Protectorat. 7-2 for Pic Dorhe. 4s for both DeGello and Hewick. 15-2 for the Royal Whacker, the defending champ, and Gar Law at 16-1. So let's take these sort of in betting order then, Dan. I think you're quite sweet on the chances on Protectorat. So let's talk about the favourite first. His credentials for this race, look, we know about his class, but do you think also at the start of the season he's a horse who does go well fresh?
It's a fascinating race in general. I've seen a lot of comments about his record fresh, and you look at the past couple of years, obviously you would call that into question. Obviously, he was last of 4 a couple of seasons ago in the Betfair, when clearly not right, and they very much built him back slowly that year. And then last year he was 6th in the Paddy Power. But he was running off a mark 167, and clearly they were building him up to bigger targets. Go back 3 seasons ago, he won the Betfair Chase in probably one of his most impressive performances on his first start of the season. And you go back through his overall profile, he is very capable fresh when they have him ready for a target. And I think the Skeltons this year, like with Take No Chances, they're going to be very keen to have a live player in all of these kind of Saturday races for around 40, 50,000, because they know it could make all the difference come the end of the year. And you look at a horse like Protectorat now, this was him chasing home John Bond in the Melling, where I think 2.5 miles now is probably sharp enough for him at his age. I think he's very much ready for that step back up to 3 miles. How many opportunities are there going to be for him throughout the course of the season? Like, he probably won't go to the Betfair Chase. Connection's already very well represented in that. King George wouldn't be for him. Obviously, you've got your various 2.5 mile sort of races throughout the season, which may be on the sharp side for him now. This is probably one of the better opportunities he's going to have through the season. And I think the Skeldons have mentioned this has very much been in their plans as a real early season target for him. He's still shown plenty of class throughout the last season. I don't think there's any signs of he's immediately regressing, but he definitely looks ready back for this step up to 3 miles. And for all that he's favourite, I think this will be an interesting market. I can see him drifting slightly, but I do think he is the one to beat on current class.
Okay, one to beat for Dan, 9-4 Fab at the moment. What about Pic Dorhe, Jake? This horse, of course, has got a fine record at Ascot. I want to take him on, really, but what are your thoughts on his chances here?
Yeah, I agree. I'd be wanting to take him on as well. Just it's the trip which is the massive unknown, isn't it? He tried 2 miles 6 at Sandown the end of last season. Okay, you can say it's at the end of a long season, but he ended up pulling up there. Probably didn't give his true running, but how can you have the full faith that he's going to go and stay 3 miles against horses we know will get the trip really well? So I'd definitely be wanting to take him on. Protectorat is obviously interesting. I think with him, my kind of requisite against him was the fact that his record on good is U7-2-6-2 in his career. So will he really be enjoying this type of ground? I think connections have him ready to go. I think this and the Fleur de Lis Chase, which he won last year, are his main targets. So I didn't say fitness would be an issue, but the ground might be. And that leads me on to Hewick, who is going to absolutely love the ground. You only have to go back 12 months and he was finishing second, going out on his sword in the Grade 1 Champion Chase on this day. That was obviously just behind Envoy Allen, an unbelievable run considering how good Envoy Allen is at Down Royal. After that, they kind of messed around with him a little bit. He ran a bit here, there and everywhere because he was going for the Grand National, obviously. So he had a few races over hurdles, a few races in the Grade 1 chases. I don't think he was ever properly campaigned to be a Grade 1 horse last season. He was really well fancied for the Grand National. Loads of people liked him. And he was running off 162, and I thought he actually ran quite well in 8th place, to be honest. It wasn't the worst performance in the world. So the fact he doesn't carry a penalty anymore, I think is also a real massive advantage to him because he was entered in this race last year and he didn't end up running. But he would have had a penalty. So I think that's probably why they decided to go for Down Royal instead and just give a go at the Grade 1, which obviously ran so well. And then, as you can see on the screen here, he's had his prep run as well. That's, I think, going to be another big advantage to him. He ran over hurdles at Turles the other day, and that should bring him on fitness-wise. So I think there's a lot in his favour. And obviously, the big news this morning was that Gavin Sheehan's going to ride, despite the fact that Garlaw's in here for Jamie Snowden anyway. So, yeah, I think that Hewitt has everything in his favour here to run a big race.
Everything in his favour then for Jake, for Hewitt. Just a brief word on DeGello, Dan. I mean, this horse has got similar form lines to a lot of these others, but Venetia's usually like a bit more cut. But here he is winning the Peterborough.
Yeah, him and Protectorat traded blows throughout a lot of last season. Obviously, Protectorat back in second here. All about run style this day. Jello was always pretty much up and handy, trading blows with Nickelback. Protectorat very much ridden cold on this occasion, and Protectorat would get his revenge at Windsor on the next start. Obviously, he has tried 3 miles once in the Denman, which was a really strange race because he was borderline detached at one stage, which really made little sense given his speed for much shorter, but came through strongly to win. Form of that in the context of this isn't at probably the level he needs to be. And I guess you're still very much looking for the Venetia yard to really start taking off. Obviously, the likes of Martator running at Ascot will get a bit more of an idea of exactly where they are. A horse with a lot of potential at this kind of trip, but obviously carries the penalty as well. So if maybe not today, he'll have other days throughout the season.
And Jake, we've got to mention the defending champ, the real whacker. Here he is 12 months ago, and he had a nice warm-up at Perth last time out. Neither of you fancy his chances. Is he being overlooked, or are there just a couple in this who are a bit better than him?
He's forever overlooked, isn't he? He's had the run, so he's got fitness on side as well. I think my main thing against him was that he does have to carry the penalty that I was talking about, that Hewitt doesn't. So he's having to give Hewitt £6, which I think could be a bit of an uphill task, despite the fact this will be his target.
Cheap pieces on Nelth as well for the first time. And also he's got Pic Dory to rival him for the pace. So that'll be an interesting pace battle because they both like to dominate a race. So we could see a bit of a clash up front, unlike last year.
So Dan's with Protectorat and Jake is with Hewitt. That's the Charlie Hall Chase. I think the guys have got a bit of other business at Wetherby, but we'll return to that at the end of the show. But for now, it's going to be Down Raw next as we look ahead to their feature race, which is the Champion Chase on Saturday.
Galvin is challenging him strongly on the near side in the Ladbroke Chase. What a finish for the crowd to salute, but it's Frodon who's hanging on to the lead, and Frodon has made all. Road to Respect is picking up and he's finding as they go towards the line. It's Road to Respect who's looking for back-to-back Ladbroke Champion Chases, and he's going to do it. It's another one for Jigginstown. Right to the line, the Storyteller's done a jump. Jerry Colomb to the line. It's very tight. Jerry Colomb. It's a familiar sight. It's Envoy Elaine at Down Royal in November, taking the Ladbroke Champion Chase.
Yeah, and Envoy Elaine, of course, is the headline act. He won it in 2022 and 2024. Haven't got an updated betting at the time of recording on Thursday morning, but there's 7 runners: Affadale Fury, Envoy Elaine, Flash Collonge, Founder 50, Spillane's Tower, who, interesting, it didn't look like they were going to run early this week because of the ground, Stellar Story, and the rapidly improving Western Fold. So at the 5-day stage, Envoy Elaine was a sort of 15-8 chance, given the field's been trimmed slightly. I'm sure he would have shortened somewhat, but look, he's won the race twice already, Jake, but what do you make of his chances? It looks like this renewal with Western Fold, Spillane's Tower, there's a proper bit of quality to this year's race. Yeah,
I'd absolutely agree with that. I think that it is a good field that are lining up here. Obviously, as you've mentioned, Spillane's Tower was a bit of an odd one where they came out yesterday and said that they probably weren't going to declare him unless there was a change in going. There hasn't been a change in going, but there is a lot of rain forecast, so that perhaps explains why they've left him in, even if it is just for now. He would be very interesting if he was back to his best. The way he ran in that Grade 1 John Durkin last season, or first time up, that would give you very much confidence that he can go on and run a big race here. Obviously, the only question mark is he actually going to turn up? Is there going to be enough rain for him to actually turn up and be at his best? That is definitely a question mark. But if he does, he has got a live chance. But obviously, Envoy Allen is the defending champ. He loves Down Royal, and you can see why people would be fancying him to go for the hat trick in this race. The one that I thought was really interesting, though, and I think that you have to have a consideration for at the very least. It's Founder 50. He's the highest rated in the field of a mark of 165. He's a point-to-point winner, but he spent his whole career over trips of 2 miles or 2.5 miles. I just think that if he stays 3 miles, which obviously is the question mark, if he stays 3 miles, he has an unbelievable chance because he's such a classy horse. He's much better going right-handed, which obviously he gets here at Down Royal. He won't really care what the ground does. If it goes soft, that would be fine. If it stays good, should be fine. He bookended last season with 2 wins over 2.5 miles. Obviously, he won on this card, the 2.5 mile chase. And then at the end of last season, he won the 2.5 mile grade 2 at Fairy House as well. So both occasions he stayed on and kind of ground out those victories. I'm kind of surprised that this is the first time he's actually tried 3 mile in his career since that point-to-point win. And Gordon Elliott, crucially thinks he'll stay. And if you look at jockey bookings this morning, Jack Kennedy clearly agrees because Stable Jockey has decided to ride Founder 50, and that would give me all the confidence in the world that he is the one here. Okay,
Founder 50 then. Strong selection from Jake in this contest. Dan, while Jake was talking, we had a look at Envoy Lens winning the race last year. Look, he's going to be another year older, but do you think he can continue to turn back time and win this again?
I guess he has the least questions to answer if you're looking through the field in terms of, we know that this is basically his main target of the season. Like, there aren't going to be too many more days in him at the age of 11. Been a fantastic course through the years, but winning opportunities thereafter are only going to get tougher. So we know in terms of readiness, unlike some of the others, this is going to be the day for him. But there are interesting roles in opposition. Founder 50 is interesting because for many reasons, as Jake mentioned, but after he won at Fairy House last time, I'm pretty sure Gordon Elliott said he's probably a grade 2 or grade 3 horse. So we're going to keep him to that kind of level. So what's his next start? Immediately into a grade 1, because naturally that follows the logic. He would be the interesting one, bit of a headstrong horse over this kind of trip. Obviously, Western Fold, rapid improver, but generally likes a bit of nicer ground, and there is plenty of rain looking to come. And the one with the most upside, I'd say, by some distance, is Spillans Tower. But you really have to worry about where they're going to campaign him, because even they seemingly aren't sure about where he's going to turn up or what his future targets might be. So with a view to the future, I'd be very much keen to just follow Founder 50 and Spillans Tower to see how they shape. Not a race I'll have a bet in, but I can see why, with some unknowns about some of the opposition, that Envoy Len is currently the market leader to make it a third win in the race.
I mean, you briefly mentioned him, Dan. Just a quick look, obviously, Western Fold and Affordale Fury have already met at Gorham Park. Just on those two, what's your sort of concern with Western Fold? Why would you not be following him in, given he's rapidly progressive?
The rain would be a concern. He has won on heavy like years ago, back in much earlier in his career, but I think there's no doubt he's been improving for better ground. And the fact that Jack Kennedy was immediately on Founder 50 as well wouldn't exactly scream massive confidence that Western Fold is their main bullet to fire here. And Affordale Fury is one I'd be very much, again, keeping an eye on, but I imagine it's going to be more with a view to a major handicap later on in the season. I don't think he's probably going to be up to winning a race like this, but currently rated 150. If he can stay around that, maybe sneak into the low 140s, still a very lightly raced horse with a lot of class to his name. Yeah, just keep an eye on him because he could pop up in a late spring handicap down the line.
Okay, so Dan, sitting on the fence, he's not that interested in getting involved in a trappy affair, but Jake is going with Founder 50. So that's a look at the feature race at Down Royal. Remember, of course, you can watch that live on Racing TV this weekend. And it's not the only thing.
To have this weather and to have the beach and this racetrack, this is paradise. You can't beat it.
This is the Breeders Cup World Championships from Del Mar.
Oh, it's wide open. Who's it going to be? Sierra Leone does it in the Breeders Cup Classic.
Yeah, don't miss the Breeders' Cup live on Friday, on Saturday on Racing TV. Team in the studio, and of course, we'll also be utilising NBC's pictures. Lots to look forward to there. Mini Hawk, the headline act for the International Raiders. Right, so the only other business left for the lads is to give us their selections for any other business. We've got a good card at Ascot and some other interesting stuff at Wetherby. So let's go to the debut man first. Jake, why don't you run through the rest of your selections for the action?
Yeah, so we're going to start off at Ascot with Special Cadu in the 2 mile handicap chase. I think he's a really interesting horse here. Obviously, he's sent across by Henry de Bromhead across the Irish Sea. And I think the first thing to say is Jasco de Dames obviously ran at Cheltenham last Friday and went off the 9-4 favourite and finished second. I think this horse, Special Cadu, is a lot better than him. So that would give you confidence straight away that he's managed to get a different horse to run so well. But on his last run, he was finishing second behind Westport Cove, as you can see on screen. And that horse is rated 144 in Ireland. So over here, he'd probably be about 147, 148 these days. But that horse actually ran a few times in the spring when he obviously was going for the Trainers' Championship. And he wasn't actually beaten very far when trying to give £8 to Sandbrewy, who obviously reopposes here with Special Caddo instead. But Special Caddo will only have to give him £3. And obviously he beat a better version of Westport Cove. He's been dramatically improving across the summer. So I thought that was a line of form that reads really well in his favour. I think the other thing to note is that Mike O'Connor gets to claim £3 off his back as well. If this race was run in Ireland, he doesn't actually get to claim in Ireland, but in England, the threshold for claiming is a little bit higher, so he gets to claim £3 off his back. His mark is 142. I think that is absolutely right for exploiting. So he'll love the good ground, and I think that he'll have a great chance. If we then move on to the 2 mile handicap hurdle, I've got two here. I'll let Dan make the case for Alexi in a bit more detail, but the other one that I thought was quite interesting in the race was Dancing Glance. Now, I saw him at Newton Abbot the other day, and he was really well punted into 15-8 favourite. Punters really couldn't see him beat. I think it was leading to him running really well, and he travelled into the race really smoothly. He really got upside the eventual winner, but he made a mistake at the second last, and that was pretty much lights out. Manuelito was trying to dominate from the front, and he managed to escape on the front end. He's rated 130. He looks a decent animal himself. But this horse was 5th in the Swinton Hurdle at the back end of last season as well. He's now rated 117, but crucially, he's got that race fitness on side. And Anthony Honeyball won this race in 2020 with Kid Commando as well. So plenty in his favour there. But lastly, the better at Wetherby that we were talking about, Don't Mind If I Do, in the handicap hurdle there. I think he's just got outstanding claims as well. He was second to Castle Ivers on his hurdles debut last year. That reads well. I think Ollie Murphy thinks a lot of that horse, despite him missing the rest of the season due to an injury. And then he made amends under no uncertain terms at Wincanton, where he bolted up by 15 lengths, despite running actually quite green that day. He's clearly a horse learning on the job. He didn't seem to handle the heavy ground when he went back to Wincanton in January. He was third that day. But going back to a sounder surface at Wetherby, I think is going to be the absolute key to him. An open mark of 120 looks ideal. And Alan King is currently 2 from 4 with his jump runs in the past 14 days. So I think fitness is definitely going to be on side as well. I don't think that's going to be a worry. So in what has worked out to be quite a weak race, I think he's the one to beat with.
Okay, so Special Caddo 205, 310 Alexi and Dancing Glance, and at Wetherby, Don't Mind If I Do is the nap. Mr. Overall.
Yeah, let's go for a few. So, like Jake, we'll start at Ascot in the sort of 2 mile 1 handicap chase. I like General Medrano here. It was around 10-1 last time I checked. Emma Lavelle started the season in really terrific form. She tends to go through these little purple patches where her strike rate is phenomenal. And this is a horse who tends to be very good this time of year. I think over fences in October and November, his record reads 1-1, 2-2-1. Obviously goes well fresh as a result. After bolting up at Newbury, he had excuses thereafter, notably at Doncaster, where he went through that race really well. Just the pace collapsed in front of him, which saw him end up way in front way too soon. Collared late by Petit Tonnerre that day, and he's now £13 better off of him where he reopposes here. He's been dropped a few pounds for some runs in the spring when he probably had a bit too much by that time of the season. So I think he'll have a really good chance in that race. On to the 2 mile handicap hurdle. Alexi, I'd be very strong on him. He ran a massive race in the Welsh Champion hurdle where I wasn't necessarily sure a track like Chepstow would suit him, bearing in mind his form, the likes of Taunton, flat, sharp, right-handed. I thought he'd be more tight for races like this, tracks like Ascot and Kempton. So getting back here, I think is going to be a massive advantage to him on decent ground. I thought it was very generous handicapping for the handicapper not to raise him £1 for that effort, bearing in mind Celtic Dino, the winner, was prepared for his life that day. That was his main target of the season without a shadow of a doubt. And the third, Willful, was a very solid sort of handicap yardstick who was improving throughout the spring of last season. So generous handicapping to leave him on his current mark. This looks like a much, probably, I'd say a weaker race in terms of the caliber of horse he'd be up against. So this looks a good opportunity for him to make amends here. Onto the Sodexo Gold Cup, and I'm interested in Blow Your Wad. He's around 14-1, stepping up to this trip for the first time. Last seen at Cheltenham when staying on over 2.5 miles in a very much protracted campaign. We only saw him twice. probably much synonymous to the Lacey Yard, really. They struggled for a lot of last season. And this is a horse who I think has to go right-handed. This day, he was kind of out wide. He's just not a horse, really, for undulating tracks going that way around. Right-handed, he is significantly better. And you look at his record that way around. He was second to Le Patron, giving him £12 when allowed to go out in front at Sandown. He's won twice at Kempton, and it was fifth in February when the Yard was struggling. So always been the type to go this way around. I think stepping up to 3 miles, he's always been the type who would get this trip eventually. He's just been quite buzzy early in his career. So I think stepping up to this trip for a Yard in great form makes him probably the one with the most scope for improvement. And the visor goes on for the first time. You look at the Yard record with that headgear going on. Last 12 months, 7 runners, 2 wins and 3 placed. So that bodes well. On to Wetherby, and a horse making his chase debut with really strong point-to-point form, with strong foundations for Sam Drinkwater. He finished second in the Irish point-to-point behind Down Mexico Way, who's rated 134. He finished ahead of Al Gasparo, who's now rated 139. And Johnny Jump Up was back in 4th, now rated 128. So that's solid point-to-point form for all that we know. It can't always be taken literally. He's been very highly tried in limited starts thus far, run at Cheltenham quite often as well. So they've always thought a lot of him. He won his maiden hurdle beating Don Virginia, rated 127. Ran respectably in a couple of spring handicaps. We're still looking a bit of a work in progress. And the handicapper dropped him £5 for 2 runs, which I think is generous. He runs off here off mark 105, goes well fresh. He still looks a bit raw, so it may not be a massive bet right now in terms of the strength of the bet, but I think he's very much one to watch as well in terms of his future over fences. He looks a chaser as well. And then the final one that Jake's already mentioned, don't mind if I do. I won't go over his case again too much because he's already mentioned it, but he's been one of the handicappers I was looking to follow this season. Good ground, 2 miles, absolutely ideal. Go Dante, getting declared late doors, making sure he doesn't carry top weight is also a bit of a blessing. Yeah, I think he's got an outstanding chance in that race.
Okay, so that's the selections for Dan then. Let's run through them again. General Madrano, 205 Ascot. Alexi the Nap in the 310. Blow Your Wad in the 345. Wetherby, 115, strong foundations. And like Jake, don't mind if I do. So both the lads strong on that one in the 330 at Wetherby. So there you go. Thanks very much to the boys for their companionship on this first of the form books of this season. They'll be back later on this year. We've got more shows lined up for the November meeting, Betfair Chase, Tingle Creek, and then into Christmas. As I said, make sure you check out both of their social profiles, Dan at Over and Clear on X and Jake at Jake Price Racing. Thanks very much, boys. Good luck with your selections this weekend. And thanks to you for your company. As I said, check out the Formbook Breeders Cup preview if you'd like to. That gets underway tomorrow, of course. Champions Full Gallop, stream it all live on ITVX. Check out the Race IQ metrics as well for anything that you want data-wise. And as mentioned as well, check out the 3 1-month trial if you'd like to take advantage of Racing TV. Lots to enjoy over the next month on the channel. Thanks very much again for your company on this week's show. We'll be back for the November meeting special in a couple of weeks. But for the time being, thanks again. And remember to please gamble responsibly.